Okay, good morning, everyone. I don't want to start too late just because the schedule's going to get pushed. On behalf of WeForm and Moms Medical, I want to thank you for joining us for Kate Sherwood's lecture on secrets of a healthy cook, how to tell nutrition facts from nutrition fiction. Two brief reminders, silence your cell phones. Also, there will be Q&A at the end. When she's done, please feel free to ask whatever questions you'd like. In an effort to begin our keynote luncheon that will begin promptly after this lecture, so please make your way downstairs right after this. So it's my pleasure to introduce Kate.
Hi and good morning. It is still morning, yes indeed. My name is Kate Sherwood. I work at the Center for Science and the Public Interest. No, you can still let people come in, that's fine. Center for Science and the Public Interest is sort of a strange place for a chef to work. But we advocate for a healthier food system. And part of that advocacy has to do with lobbying the government to change things like the better funding for school lunches. Part of that advocacy has to do with getting better labels on food. So for instance, the nutrition label is something that we lobbied for and finally got in 1991. And by 2020, you'll see the new labels, and I'll give you an example of those a little later. We also do litigation when we have to. So when companies are putting out misleading information, we sometimes have our lawyers have a word with them about their packaging or something along that line. And then we have the education section, and that's the section that I'm in. So the nutritionists for the newsletter that we write tell you what you should be eating, things like lots more fruits and vegetables. And I get to translate that into something you might actually want to eat. Okay? So today I'm going to talk to you about nutrition facts and fiction. I think if you've been here since this morning, you might be familiar with these verbs. There's a misperception in the U.S. that when sugar became the bad guy, or when fat became the bad guy, we switched to sugar. But in fact, proteins, carbohydrates, and fats have all been on an uphill run from the 70s until now. We just plain eat more calories of all types. What does that mean? We also have been on an uphill run towards 70% of the population now being overweight and obese. That even when you get to the high end of the normal range, you start to put yourself at risk for various chronic diseases. And yes, the doctors can give you a pill, but I would suggest that you'd rather like to prevent that instead. So, one of the things that makes life so difficult for us is this sort of scenario. You go into the grocery store and the amount of choice that you have doesn't make you happier. It makes you confused and overwhelmed. It's one of the reasons I like to shop at smaller grocery stores, like a small Whole Foods, not even a big Whole Foods, because I want them to curate what's there. I don't want all that choice. I just want a few things that are good for me and decent. Not that there's no junk food in Whole Foods, don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for that. But when you're faced with this level of choice and this level of availability. Think about the fact that you now can go into the Banana Republic and there's chocolate at the checkouts. Think about you go into the hardware store, there's food everywhere all the time. And so we hear people who are in lower income communities and their advocates saying that they live in food deserts. I would suggest to you that indeed they live in food swamps. There's not that there aren't enough calories available, it's that all the calories are crap. Okay? So we actually now have a problem in the US with overweight and obesity with malnutrition, which means bad nutrition. It doesn't mean that you're skinny. It means that you might be getting enough calories. It might be irregular how many calories you're getting, but you're overweight, you're probably diabetic, you're probably in pain. Things like diabetic nerve pain have become an epidemic here. So what do we do to, there's so much information out there, right, about what you should eat. Like, should you try a paleo diet? Should you try a keto diet? Should you go off all carbs? What should you do? I would like to suggest to you today that the best diet for everyone is indeed the same diet. It includes lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and by whole grains I mean unprocessed whole grains, so not broken down into bread or other products. So an unprocessed whole food diet is the best thing that's going to get you to the best you. And yes, you can use different spices and different ideas from different countries about how to prepare those foods, but indeed, you do not need a special diet just for you. Unless you have a prescribed medical condition where your doctor is telling you to eat something specific. You don't need a special diet. So some of the information that's out there is out there because you can't sell a newspaper or convince people to listen to your radio program or any of those things if you just say, eat more fruits and vegetables. That's a really boring message, right? So unfortunately, that means that they've got to give you new and interesting things to think about. Well, I would love you to just block all that out and do the right thing. So lately, we've been hearing a lot about the fact that you can eat as much saturated fat as you'd like. That is patently untrue. It's not supported by the science. Yes, you can have a diet that has a lot of fat in it, but it should be fat from healthy sources, nuts, seeds, vegetable-based oils like extra virgin olive oil. We do not know yet, there haven't been good studies on vegetable-based fats like coconut oil that are solid at room temperature. Coconut oil has more saturated fat in it than butter. And we don't know if those medium-chain fatty acids that are in there are okay for you or not. We suspect not, but we don't know. The studies that have been done have been small and badly designed. So don't let anyone convince you that you're dolloping these solid fats onto your food. Now, I would never suggest that you shouldn't eat any meat. All right? If you like meat, my husband is South African. He likes to barbecue. He's a big carnivore. I'm not going to say to him, no meat. But on our journey, we've been moving towards less meat. Maybe once a week or every 2 weeks, the 16-ounce steak that we share. I still think that's way too much. That steak there that you see, that's like your New York strip. That's your 16-ounce New York strip or 12-ounce New York strip. That's enough for 4 people. I know, and the only way you're going to get to that probably is you slice it up nice and thin and serve it with a bunch of other really delicious stuff, right? So anybody, by the way, they said I'd only take questions at the end, but I love questions all the time. So you can ask me whenever you want.
When you're saying meat, do you mean red meat or do you mean meat in general? Like, do you
So good, yeah, great question. I do mean red meat. I mean lamb, pork, beef. I don't mean, so chicken and fish, especially skinless chicken. But even like a rotisserie chicken where a lot of the fat from the skin has dripped off, good choices. Fish especially a good choice. Yes?
The coconut oil is so deserving because there's so many holistic doctors on your and then you get the analogy.
Can you speak up, Cynthia? I can't hear.
Just the coconut oil seems more controversial. I mean, there are some
Right.
people that are just like, why are you listening to anything from the coconut oil? It's like an avocado or some cream. So it's so confusing.
So, if you were a vegan who had a really, really good diet and that was the only saturated fat in your diet, like in addition to say some seeds and nuts, I would say, wow, very satisfying, you can spread it on your toast, or whatever. But if you have anything remotely like your average American diet, the standard American diet, you don't need to add more saturated fat to your diet, okay? You don't need saturated fat, right?
If you're gonna buy coconut oil, there's different types. Is it unfiltered?
So I don't want you to buy any coconut oil.
Okay.
To be completely clear, because we don't have any evidence. The studies, when I say the studies were small and unconvincing and poorly, I mean like 6 people. I mean, really, seriously, there's no good, decent evidence that says eat this or don't eat this. What I would suggest to you is always look for cold pressed oils that are made from some sort of fruit or vegetable or seed or nut, right? That's what you're looking for.
There was a time when they said pork was the healthy white meat or
That was the pork council. Yes, that's true. The other white meat. No, pork is not the other white meat. And again, don't get me wrong, I eat everything. But, you know, please use the pork in a mindful way. Use it in a stir fry where it's 1/4 at most of what is on your plate. The rule is that you want your plate to be at least half full, I'd say 3/4 full with fruits and vegetables, and then there's that little bit of space. Remember what I said at the beginning? Americans are eating more of protein, carbs, and fats. We need to eat less of all of those and keep them in a decent balance, right? Make it make sense for you and your family. But that doesn't mean what you don't want to do is eat so little that you're hungry, right? So when you lower the caloric density of the whole plate by eating lots of fruits and vegetables, because especially vegetables, not a lot of calories there, but they fill you up. So you fill up before you fill out, right? And that's what you're aiming for. But to be able to do that, you gotta make those vegetables amazingly delicious. You gotta make them so that that's the thing you go back for seconds of, right? And that's what I'm about. Let's make the vegetables awesome. Make the salads awesome. We'll talk more about that soon. Okay, so it's fat fiction, stuff at the top better for you, down at the bottom, use sparingly, okay? The sweet stuff. Okay, all added sugars are a combination of fructose and glucose, okay? The fructose part of it is what adds fat inside your organs, on your visceral fat, that's your belly fat, and intermuscularly, okay? Excess of fat anywhere in the body can lead to insulin resistance, right? So you're on your path to, yes, Bob?
Yeah, I didn't see avocado oil in your list of oils here. Is that the healthy?
Good choice if you can afford it.
Okay,
Perfectly good choice. It does have a lowish smoke point though,
right.
so probably good for salad, probably drizzling on things, but probably not a great cooking oil.
Okay.
Okay? So here's the good news. The new nutritional labels that are coming have the added sugar line, right? You'll see some of them already. So now you can figure out that Cheerios protein has only 1 more gram of protein than regular Cheerios, which we sued them for and won. But it has as much sugar as the Honey Nut Cheerios. Bad choice, right? So you want to lower your added sugars. What we recommend is 6 teaspoons or less per day. If you're eating processed food, you probably already get that. Now think about the fact that you would probably not put 6 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee or on your cereal, right? So the more stuff that you eat that's closer to the natural thing where you are seasoning it yourself, the more sense you have of what you're doing to and for your body. Same thing with salt. Yes.
I just have a quick question about the sugar. So just because this is the way foods are labeled, do you know how many like grams that is a day for sugar? Like 6 teaspoons? I mean, I could look it up, sorry.
Yes, it's 4.3 grams per teaspoon.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we lobbied for it to be in teaspoons. We did not win that fight, okay? It's still gonna be in grams, so to use 4 grams per teaspoon, plus minus, that's what it is. The thing that's especially confusing is a lot of companies, especially health food companies, are using so many different added sugars, dried cane juice and apple juice concentrated. There's so many different sugars that you're not even sure how much it is. Well, now you'll know, which is a good added benefit. Okay. So, remember what we talked about? So, the fructose and the glucose are the 2 components of sugar. This list is in an order, in a specific order. Guess which one is the best and which is the worst. The bottom's the worst. And a lot of people think, oh, agave syrup is natural. Well, guess what? All of these down to here have around a 50-50 blend. Fructose, glucose. So it's doing the same exact thing to your body. All of those going to get processed the exact same way. When we get here, guess what? It gets up to 55%. That's only 5 more percentage points. Here we get about 56, between maybe up to 60 in the juice concentrates. Agave comes in over 80% fructose. So don't throw your agave out because we don't want to waste any more food, right? But please don't use it as a first choice. okay? And don't convince yourself that it's a healthy choice. These are the new labels, old labels here, new labels here, calories will be bigger. Serving sizes are going to get more realistic. How fantastic is that? So if it's a single serve drink, like this is my 16-ounce Coke, instead of saying 2 servings, because who drinks half and then puts it away, right? So more realistic serving sizes. I forget what ice cream is going to, but still not realistic in my book. I think it's going from half a cup to 2/3 a cup. Come on, still not realistic. I think they should go to the pint level. Just saying, it comes as a pint. I need it as a pint. Should be a pint. Anyways, so there you get your includes the added sugars, and we got a percentage, so you can see how much. Now, their percentage is based on a higher number per day, higher number of teaspoons per day, so I would go even lower, right, than what the USDA, FDA is recommending on those labels. The salt controversy. If you don't eat any processed foods, i.e. you add all your salt by yourself, to get to the lower 1,500 milligram level that the FDA or that nutritionists recommend if you have any conditions or risk factors for high blood pressure, is 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt. Think about using all of that salt, just for you, not your whole family, all day. How much do you need in your eggs? Would it be a 1/16 or something? I mean, it's not a quarter. So you still got a whole bunch for the rest of the day. How much do you need in your salad dressing? What if it's up to a quarter? That quarter teaspoon, that's a lot of salt for one salad, even if it's a big salad, right? And then you get to dinner and you want to season the fish and the vegetables. There's plenty, you can have plenty of taste in your diet, plenty of deliciousness, with never going over even the lower salt limit. But if you have processed foods in your diet, or if you dine out a lot, you're going to blast through that all at once. Here's what happens when you dine out. We've got menu labeling now on the big chain restaurants. That was part of the ACA. Thank you, Obama. That got put into place from the Affordable Care Act. The menu labeling allows you to see the calories and in some cases some of the other nutrient factors. So if you go to Cheesecake Factory, you're 4 people, lovely 2 couples, you decide to order 1 appetizer, 1 entree or main course, and 1 dessert. For the 4 of you to share each one, you've each gone over your entire daily calorie limit for the day. Right? So this is helpful. This information is helpful, and it's both changing what people eat and it's changing what restaurants put on their menus. It's just beginning, it's helpful, it's interesting, but you know, they make those things delicious by making them very naughty indeed. Okay? But now at least you know, all right? So, salt. There are no salts that are better or good or better than the others. They're all just basically salt. Why do you buy Himalayan rock salt? Because it's pretty. Because it looks good on the grinder, in the grinder on your table. But that is the only reason. To get any mineral value out of these salts that are supposed to be special, you would have to eat way too much of it. Okay, so buy it if you think it's pretty, but otherwise don't waste your money. And I would say buy kosher salt. Here's why. It's not because I'm Jewish or I think you should kosher your meats or anything like that. It's because it has big grains and you can pick it up with your fingers and you can put it on your food. When you pick it up with your fingers, you get a really visceral sense of how much salt am I adding. Do it even at the table, because then you know, oh, I'm picking up a 2-pinch, a 3-pinch, a 4-pinch, right? And you'll get to know how much you're putting on. This mindless grinding and shaking, ugh, it's too much maybe, right? With your fingers you could feel it. That's why chefs do it. It's also, the reason it's way up here is just to spread it out on the food properly. Okay? So that's the salt. Ah yes, whole grains, lentils and beans. You cannot drink your fiber, people. Metamucil is for when you come out of the hospital and your guts aren't working. Okay? It's not for every day. You need to get your guts working by eating whole, intact fiber. Whole grains, lentils, and beans. You're not going to get the fiber that you need just from fruits and vegetables. Not going to happen. There's just not enough in there. You'd have to eat buckets and buckets of this stuff. And then you'll have a different type of tummy ache.
At one point, you don't have to stop.
Just
discuss insoluble fiber and benefits or negatives?
So the reason I wear this jacket is to reinforce the fact that I'm a cook, not a nutritionist. So I know I will not discuss insoluble and soluble fiber because I mess them up. Only to say though that the grains have the one kind and the lentils and beans have the other kind, and if you eat both, you'll get both. And you need both.
Okay.
Right, one of them is to like fill the gut up and make it feel full and to move things along. And the other one I think has something to do with taking cholesterol out of the body, like oats, right? That's why they can claim on oats. So it must be the grains that take cholesterol.
Can I
Anyway,
ask,
yes.
Chia seeds and flax seeds, is that something you would also, is that a whole
So-
fiber?
No, so seeds are excellent. For the most part, you do need to like grind them up or soak them, do something to make them accessible to your body. Otherwise, they're just sheer roughage. You know, they're just going on through. Was there another question in the back? No. Okay. We're on time. So I'd really like you to go back to the basics. So this is my diet that I'm advising for you, and we're going to read the way we do in English, which is top to bottom and left to right. And so I would read this as veg, 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 fruit, 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 whole grains, lentils and beans, healthy proteins, healthy protein, healthy protein, and a little bit of fat. Okay, what's not on there? Dairy, sugar. I'm not saying you don't need dairy. Dairy can be a good choice in this row. Low fat or no fat Greek yogurt, good choices. I would say, so there's no desserts, there's no sugars, there's nothing like that. Dessert is a treat. There's also no beverages on here, because this is the beverage of choice. You should not drink your calories. I know that's so disappointing.
My kids are obsessed with milk. They want to drink milk all the time. How
They want to chug it.
should I limit that? Or I try to limit it, but
Do they want to drink non-fat milk?
they'll drink any kind of milk.
Give them the non-fat milk.
But,
As long as it's not sweetened and it's not the whole fat kind, that's what we now recommend. Absolutely. Same with the yogurts. You know, whether it's, we don't want you to, the great thing about the new labels, so if you picked up a fruit yogurt, now, because there's the added sugar line, you can end up seeing how much of the sugar occurs naturally in the milk that's in there and the food that's in there, and that's actually been added.
So it's
Right.
right fat, that would be the.
It's the saturated fat when it comes to drinking milk.
dairy.
No, there's not really controversy around drinking dairy as such, unless you're lactose intolerant, and then you can get the lactate milk.
I was
Yes,
just going to ask you, I'm like, I've heard different stories about drinking milk, having milk, or even dairy. So I didn't knew it without having, dairy up here, I didn't know what your thought was. Like, I mean,
so,
You're
you know,
saying it's the
my
fat
thought
that's
is
bothering you
that
with?
in the treats section that's not showing is things like whole fat cheeses, and I do not recommend, trust me, I've tasted them all, low fat cheeses, they're like cardboard, they're disgusting. So I would say that they're in the treats section.
okay.
The sort of, this should be the vast bulk of your diet, and if you want to have some Parmesan cheese or a little bit of Manchego or this or that, great. But if there's a choice like in the yogurt and milk section where you can pick the non-fat, if that's satisfying. Now, if you pick the non-fat yogurt and then add a bucket of honey to it, that starts to be a bad choice again, right?
Milk was a go-to for one son, because that was his only source of protein.
Okay.
So how do you view it as a source of protein, having milk?
So milk is an animal product. It has plenty of protein
Okay,
in
I
it.
didn't know.
Yeah, most Americans get too much of all the nutrients.
Uh-huh.
More or less. So if you want, I don't know about in children, but if in adults, to figure out how many grams of protein you need per day, take your target weight. All right, so if my target weight is 150 pounds, I know you find that shocking, but it's not. My target weight is 150 pounds, and I divide that in half, 75 grams. I should have 75 grams of protein across the day. Do you need protein spread across your whole day? No, you do not. Your body's really smart. It will combine the stuff it needs when it needs it. Your digestive tract is long. It takes 24 to 36 hours for this stuff to get through. Your body will take it when it needs it. Okay? So you don't need, people are convinced, but we've tested it and it doesn't work with drinks that are either protein heavy or not protein heavy. it doesn't add to satiety. It's a placebo effect, it's in your head. Okay?
Yeah, so I suffered from acid reflux for a while, and I was getting on those pills that take your memory away. But I started reading about enzymes, and I started on papaya and pineapple enzymes, and they seem to have done away with the pills, actually. So what are your feelings on enzymes? Are they important? Are they a part of your...
I'm going to refer to the chef's code again and say that I will not be giving any dairy like supplement advice. I just can't. I just don't have the expertise.
Well, not a supplement,
I
but papaya
understand.
or pineapple.
So I would suggest to you that if you need enzymes, you need to talk to a doctor about that and what makes sense. But for the most part, a whole healthy diet will not give you reflux. I'm a chef though, so I want you to go to the doctor, not listen to me. Just making sense there, right? Yes?
This may be back to the chef
Mhm.
response, but you haven't talked about gluten and all the controversy about gluten. And there's no bread clearly, so just
So the only reason that there's no bread up here is because we think that the more you process anything, like if you grind it into a flour, the more your body responds with insulin and sugar levels, right, with insulin coming in. So whole wheat bread is still way better than white bread, but you know, something like 0.9% of the people are actually celiac, so they're allergic to the protein. Some people may be sensitive to it, but I suspect that most gluten, like you get stuff like gluten-free, organic, artisanal donuts. That's junk food. It's still junk food. So what? The gluten-free gives you a health halo? No. No, it's still junk, right? I mean, I would honestly say use common sense. And most people don't need to be gluten-free. The vast majority. At least 90%.
Okay.
If gluten-free means not eating crap like white bread, then please go gluten-free. If the only bread you like is Wonder Bread, please go gluten-free. Yeah, that's a good, yes.
What are your thoughts on just dried fruit? They're like my go-to, like, I use them kind of like treats, but I also eat a lot of them. And if you read the packaging, it really is just the fruit dried, but then I'm assuming I'm eating, it's obviously the same sugar as eating the whole one, so I just
Sure.
in general, I'm
So
torn on.
so what happens when you dry the fruit? You take the water out, right? You're just taking water out. So it's still fruit, it's still good for you, but you're more likely to overeat, and it's either gonna give, you know, it's either gonna fill you out eventually. Just wait until you get to my age. Wait till you hit 50 something. It's either gonna, yeah. I mean, you're eating, like if you think to yourself, oh, like I love dried pears, they're unbelievable, and I could eat 4, 5, 6 pieces. I would never eat 3 pears, right? So chug a glass of water with each dried fruit piece, okay? Or use them like in other things, like in salads or things where there's other stuff that's giving you water and nutrients and goodness. Nothing terrible about them, but it's just a condensed form of the fruit, so can be fattening. Right, where was I? Right, so if we're going to eat lots of vegetables, what do we have to do? We have to use what chefs know about how to make food delicious to make the vegetables delicious. So I would suggest to you that you take as much or more time on the vegetable portion of your dinner than you do on the grain part or the protein part, right? Roast them, saute them, make a dressing, use fresh herbs, make them beautiful. Think about temperature, texture, flavor, right? So if you roast the eggplant and that's warm, and then you put like cool, fresh, this is midsummer, cool, fresh tomatoes, basil, olive oil, this will make you eat more of the good stuff, right? And don't worry about how much you have to season it. Vegetables are rejected by people, especially people who have fine palates, super tasters, but everybody at the top of the range, because they're bitter. Things that block bitter on the palate are, guess what? Fat and salt. So fat and salt are your friends when making vegetables. I'm not suggesting a boat of cheese sauce for your broccoli, but a little bit would be delicious. and will make you love the broccoli and eat more. And I'd rather have you do that than just eat the steak, right? So you make it beautiful. You make salads that are really hearty. So this one has beets and butternut, and it's got quinoa and some seeds, some sunflower seeds, and so that, it also has some lentils. But then you've got to make a really amazing dressing, right? The dressing has to taste fantastic. And the stuff that comes in the bottles at the store, they use crappy oils, inexpensive oils. They use sugar and salt, lots of vinegar, and thickeners to make it sort of seem like it has a good mouthfeel. You're way better off just whisking up a dressing at home. I was talking to Cindy earlier. How do you make a nice, thick, interesting dressing? One of the ways, think about the different things that you can thicken a dressing with. Yes, we use mustard and honey and things like that in dressings to give some viscosity, but what about baby food? Apple baby food to start your sesame dressing, or apricot baby food to start another dressing. So that's 100% fruit, it's super smooth, it's got some viscosity, it's got a sweet tart balance, right? Nature makes fruit in a sweet tart balance just right. You don't have to adjust it. You add some salt, you add some vinegar, you add some oil, whisk, 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 maybe a little bit of mustard, you've got a great dressing. So what I do at CSPI is we have these newsletters and I write the recipe page. So the nutrition, we got piles of them for all of you. So the nutritionists say, yes, we want people to eat more lentils. And I go, yes, let's go into the test kitchen and make more lentils and make them amazing. All right? Oh, this is an ode to my sister. This is her salad. I was stuck one time. I was in the middle of a deadline for a cookbook. And I was getting really frustrated. And she told me this obvious, simple thing. I've got this salad. It's farro and it's chicken and it's got some arugula and a lemony dressing and it's amazing. And I'm like, that's only 5 ingredients. And she's like, yes, but it's delicious. And a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And I whipped it up and I was like, yes, it's amazing. That's her recipe, delicious and healthy,
Not
right?
mine, but I got it from somebody else.
Oh, all right, it's probably Enid Gardner's or somebody. Okay. And I urge you, I didn't have this on the slide of veg, but I would urge you to make friends with tofu. Super healthy, super delicious. Here's why it's delicious. Tastes like nothing. You can make it taste like anything. It's even more neutral than chicken. And guess what? Unlike chicken, you can't overcook it. It doesn't get tough and stringy and dry. It stays delicious. So there's lots of ways to make tofu delicious. I would suggest to you that stick initially with just Asian recipes because that's where it comes from and it sort of makes sense and they've got the right sort of things. So there's this traditional recipe for mapo tofu, which typically is made with ground pork. Well, this is not in my vocabulary as a healthy cook. What we used was some chopped cashews. So get the nice luxury of those cashews to give texture and richness and spices, and it's a delicious sauce with a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of, plenty of soy sauce for that umami and saltiness, and you come up with an amazingly delicious dish. So yes, I would suggest make friends with tofu. Yes?
You may have already mentioned this, but when you refer to the oil that you use for salad dressing or just for cooking, what do you recommend for that?
So there's extra virgin olive oil, which I use for practically everything, because it's good for you and because I like the taste of it. But then there are some things like Asian food where extra virgin olive oil would both be a waste of money and just not make that much sense at really super high temperatures like stir-fry temperatures. So there you want a more neutral oil, any of the vegetable oils that are, refined. So there's peanut oil, there's canola, there's safflower, sunflower, any of those. Just enough, just something that's liquid at room temperature. Yeah?
Thank you.
Hey,
Yeah.
I have a young couple in their early 20s living with me. One day I cooked for them because they both work. I said, I'm going to make tofu for you. And they were like, why? I said, trust me. And I used your recipe.
This is my mom, by the way. She's a tiny bit biased.
And I'm overweight, so I know I'm not a good example.
Everything,
But-
no, she's my social media in-house, like just in the room.
Now they ask me for the tofu. I'm like, they ask me for it. Now they ask me for it.
One of the things that you can do to get your family to try new things is to have like taco nights or burrito nights or something where, make your own pizza night, where they get to choose. It's helpful if you have your kids choose at the grocery store. You know, like, you can choose anything that's in the fruit and vegetable section. Okay, go. The more choice they get, the more control they get, the more likely they are to try new things. Or eat more of the things that you decide to buy together and cook together. So nice for like Taco Tuesdays and have these. The other thing I like about it is it's one of those things that's kind of a go-to. You like open the fridge. Okay, am I making a stir fry? Am I making a taco bar? Or am I making a stew? Because what's in the pantry, what's in the fridge, those things lend themselves to, oh, what can I make tonight? Make it a little bit easier. Yes.
What is your favorite substitute for, say, like brown rice? And what should I go to next? Because the kids will eat brown rice now.
So brown rice is great. It's a good choice, but if you want to get a little bit more nutrient dense than the things like wheat berries or things that are longer cooking, wild rice, maybe add a bit of wild rice into the mix.
Okay.
So generally, the darker something is, the more micronutrients it has, right? So if you think about the range of fruits, when you get to like the darkest berries, blackberries, they're a little bit more dense than say a strawberry, but all fruits and vegetables are good for you. You shouldn't oh, I'm gonna give up mushrooms, they're not nutrient dense enough. No, they're all good for you. Eat the ones that you like. Eat more of the ones you like. Just eat more fruits and vegetables. Yes.
Sorry, the tofu, is it all soy-based? And is soy the hormone trigger for
So-
that everyone's talking about?
Yes, it is coagulated soy protein, right? So they're basically, if you buy organic, it's not going to have garbage in it, right? It's not going to have, right? No, the studies are not convincing that, don't worry about it affecting hormones. Until and unless, if your doctor tells you not to eat soy-based products because you have breast cancer, I am not contradicting that, I'm not saying that, but for normal, healthy people, there's no indication that, Japan and China live on this stuff, right?
I don't know what tempeh is, but is that?
Tempeh is also soy-based. It can be based on other things as well. It's a cake, it's a fermented cake that is made from sometimes soybeans, then they inoculate it with the thing that it ferments it. All right, so it can have a tangy taste. I quite like it because it's quite chewy, quite meaty. So that question was about tempeh. Yes, tempeh is a good choice. Oh, and please learn how to cook fish and chicken. Yes, I'm a food stylist. Yes, this is my picture. No, I did not pour any juice on that. I literally cut it on the board. That is what cooked chicken is supposed to look like, people. It's supposed to be juicy. Do not cook it until it's totally dead. Most people overcook their chicken. Learn to cook chicken. I can't teach you right now, but I'll give you my card. You can text me and we'll talk. But please, chicken doesn't taste good unless it's done nicely. Yes?
So I'm Irish and I learned that the hard way because we overcook everything.
Yes.
And I married a Greek, and one of the best tips he ever taught me is when grilling or just in general cooking is that you can take it off early because it still cooks.
Yes.
Like that whole concept had never entered my mind.
There's two reasons why we rest meat, chicken, fish, meat, after we cook it, whether it's saute pan or the grill. Okay, so when the protein cooks, the strands of the protein do this, and all the juice either drips out or runs to the center, right? As it sits when you take it off, 5 more degrees of temperature coming up as the heat distributes towards the center and out, and the muscle fibers relax a little bit and the juice gets distributed back out into the whole thing. But if you've already overcooked it, so here's another tip that's similar. So get a good sear on one side of the chicken, like let it cook until it's really beautifully brown, the way you like north piece of fish. Then turn it over and take it off the heat. And just let the residual heat, especially if you pounded the chicken thinner, like a 1/4 inch or so, let the residual heat of the pan just bring the other bit up to temperature. And guess what? When you do that, when you take it off that high heat, you give yourself a very big space to get it right, because you're not blasting it with heat, right? So your space gets bigger, and you get more talented. Your family loves you. Even more than they already do, of course. All right, snacks for 100 people. What's the difference between the left and the right side of this screen? These all are 100 calories. This is the best graphic I think to be able to show you that you have to eat fruits and vegetables as snacks. Yes, Pine bars are filled with healthy things, but that is not a healthy filling snack. You can have that many grape tomatoes or that many, I mean, even let's cut the grape tomatoes in half and serve them with some hummus or something, make them really satisfying. Or eat some of those almonds with some of those carrots or blueberries or apples. But clearly, these are calorie-dense foods. These are processed foods. This is, other than the almonds, this is not really good snack choices because they don't actually fill you up. This little bad boy is for the end of the day when you're by yourself and you just need to calm down. And then you have your little bite of chocolate. But it's not something to fill you up as a snack. It's not something to pick you up as a snack. Okay? Those are your snacks. Fill up with those. Satisfying, hearty, delicious. I snack on lettuce leaves. I get that that's weird. But it's also delicious. Okay.
I don't believe that.
I know, she knows the real truth. I'm just trying to set a good example. All right, shameless self-promotion now. I can come with you into your kitchens. The little flyer that is a single piece of paper when you get it has a link to be able to buy my books. My office is a test kitchen. I test every single recipe. We also amateur test every single recipe to make sure that even normal mortals, unlike me, can make these delicious dishes. And yes, even though the interns get super nervous when they have to cook in front of me, they can make these dishes. All right? That is all in for me. I hope you enjoyed it.